I know she was no great beauty, not to compare with Elspeth, or Lola, or Cleone, or the Silk One, or Susie, or Nariman, or Fetnab, or Lakshmi Bai, or Lily Langtry, or Valor, or Cassie, or Irma, or the Empress Tsusi, or that big German wench off the Haymarket whose name escapes me. By Jove, I can't complain at the end of the day, can I? But by the time the third evening was reached, if you'd asked me my carnal ideal of womanhood, I'd have described it as just over 5 feet tall, sturdy and nimble, wearing a beaded tunic and white doe-skin leggings, with a round, chubby face, sulky lips, and great slanting black eyes that looked everywhere but at me. God, but she was pleased with herself, that smug, dumpy, nose-in-the-air wench. And I must have been about to burst when the yawner tapped me on the shoulder and jerked his head, and when I got up and panted my way out of the firelight, no one paid the least notice. Possibly I was drunk with liquor as well as lust, for I don't remember much except riding into the night with the yawner alongside, and the shadowy form of Quick Killer ahead. The night wind did nothing to cool my ardour either, for it seemed to grow with each passing mile through the wooded hills, and by the time we dismounted, and they and the ponies had faded tactfully into the darkness, I could have tackled the entire fair sex, provided they were all short and muscular and apple-cheeked. Through the trees I could see the twinkle of a fire, and I blundered towards it, disrobing unsteadily, and staggering as I got my pants off. And there was the little Wickiup, and no doubt the flowers were flapping about somewhere, but I didn't pause to look. She was reclining on a blanket at the door of the Wickiup, on one elbow, that sturdy little brown body agleam in the fire-glow, as though it had been oiled, and not a stitch on, except for the patterned headband above the cinnamon eyes that gleamed like hot coals, and the tight white leggings that came up to her hips. She didn't smile, either, just gave me that sullen stare and stretched one leg while she stroked her hand down the seam of tiny bells, making them tinkle softly. My stars, I thought, it's been worth it, coming to America. And that's when I remember the pine needles under my knees, and the smell of wood smoke and musk, and deliberately taking my time as I stroked and squeezed every inch of that hard, supple young body, for I was damned if I was going to give her the satisfaction of having me roar all over her like a wild bull. I'd been teased and sweated by her and her blasted tribal rituals too long for that, so I held off and played with her until the sulky pout left her lips, and those glorious eyes opened wide, as she forgot she was an Apache princess and became my trembling captive of the scalp hunter's camp again. And she began to gasp and squirm and reach out for me with little moans of querido and hoarse Apache endearments, which I'm sure from her actions were highly indelicate. And she suddenly flung herself up at me, grappling like a wrestler, and positively yowled as she clung with her arms round my neck and her bells pealing all over the place. "Now, that's a good little Indian maid," says I, and stopped her entreaties with my mouth, while I went to work in earnest, but very slowly, Susie fashion, which was a marvel of delightful self-restraint, and I'm sure did her a power of good. For as the warm dawn came up and I was drowsing happily under the blanket, and deciding there were worse places to be than the Gila forest, there were those little lips at my ear, and those hard breasts against me, and the tiny whisper, "Make my bells ring again, Pindalikoi." So we rang the changes for breakfast.